It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
G'day everyone and welcome to our FIFA World Cup 2022 daily live streams on the Trademate Sports Betting Podcast. Today we will be previewing tomorrow's group games, which are Switzerland versus Cameroon, Uruguay versus... No, that is not right.
You got the wrong day, mate. That was today. I mean, we can go through them if you want, but
I reckon I might get some of them right.
Yeah, same. Oh, mate, what a start.
You panicked me then. I won't lie. Oh, God, I previewed the wrong games.
I'll get rid of that lower third. We're going to go through Wales versus Iran. We're going to go through Qatar versus Senegal, Netherlands versus Ecuador, England versus USA, and we'll have a brief look ahead to the weekend games as we won't be on any live streams on Friday and Saturday night. So, yeah, we'll have a quick look. I think it's the Group C to F game. So have a quick look at those and see if the boys have got anything interesting for those games. As always, please send through any questions you guys have got throughout the stream, any comments, any bets you like, etc., etc. And, yeah, we'll provide any commentary on those. Firstly, down the bottom of your screen, we have returning after a day hiatus, George Gamble. How are you, mate?
I'm doing well. I feel slightly bad in that the first show I came on, I was absolutely ripping Neil for backing out last minute, and then 24 hours later, I'm having to do the exact same thing. But no, it's good to be back. And obviously, I've not seen Tony for a while as well, so it's good to be kind of saying hello again, doing a show. It's all good.
Yeah, we've got professional gambler Tony Alvarez back on. Good to have you back on, mate. How's it? Oh, you're actually in Qatar at the moment. Do you want to share a little insight for everyone as to what's been going on over there?
Yeah. I mean, well, thanks for having me. But yeah, it's lovely over here. I was worried. I'd read all the stories in the press and whatnot of how bad it was going to be and how I'd get beheaded for breathing. And then if I decided not to breathe, they'd behead me anyway. But it's been amazing. Like, the people are fantastic. There's no strictness at all. Like, people are saying, "Oh, yeah, it's okay as long as you sort of follow everything and don't live a normal life." But it's not been like that at all. Everyone's been really welcoming, and yeah, you can pretty much live a normal life. I mean, alcohol's expensive, but that's not the end of the world. But yeah, it's really good over here. Apart from the air conditioning in the stadiums is so cold. I was at the Uruguay game. I couldn't wait for it to win. Everyone was just sitting in the stands freezing. It was like, I don't know, like 25, 30 degrees out. But the stand, it must have been like, I don't know, probably 18, 20, which I know if people are watching this in England, they're going to think, what are you moaning about? But when you take 2 steps and it's 30 degrees and then it's 20, the difference is horrible. And obviously you're wearing like shorts and a t-shirt. But yeah, it's actually not that hot here, as in like not sweltering. When they're saying, oh, the Winter World Cup wouldn't be possible because of the heat. And I don't know if people have been factoring the temperature into bets and stuff. I wouldn't it's hotter in the Premier League games in September and August, to be honest, than it is here. Apart from maybe the sorry, I'll lose track of times. The 1 o'clock kickoff here, which would be 10 a.m. in England. That game's hot, but the sun goes down at about 4. So the second game, kickoff time of the second game, the sun's going down and it's not hot at all. So the only game I'd ever worry about the temperature, if people are factoring that into betting, would be the early kickoffs. As I said, I think that's 10 a.m. UK time.
Yeah.
Interesting, because a lot of those games have been like pretty low scoring games from memory, like the Switzerland game today. Croatia game was 0-0. So, yeah, maybe there is something to that. Then I guess people predict.
Yeah, I think the Argentina one is the only one that's had a couple or 2 or 3 goals in it off the top of my head. But there's so much football, obviously, there's so much football for everyone. But when you're here, I lose track of what game happened when, to be honest, because it's been 3 games on the first day. Well, the first, then 3, and then 4 games a day. And I've been at a couple or at least 1 game most days. So it has been a bit all over the place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I lost track to the point where I started reading out we were previewing yesterday or today's game. So that's how bad it's got, mate. But no, that's terrific insight, mate. It'll be, as we go along and preview some of these games, it'll be good to get someone's insight who's there at ground level, you might say, and see what you're thinking. Any thoughts on today's games, George? Not really any massive surprises, would you say? I mean, Ghana gave Portugal a good run for their money. I thought I watched a little bit of the first half of the Cameroon game, before I went to bed, and that was that wasn't looking too good for the Swiss early on. Probably Cameroon snuffed a few chances there, but any thoughts on today, mate?
Yeah, I think a lot of it went as expected, really. I feel like a lot of people underrated, the Asian sides coming into this. I think a lot of people felt there'd be a huge disparity in class and in quality. And, we saw, admittedly, all right, Uruguay, they've got a lot of Asian players. But nevertheless, South Korea, you'd argue Uruguay probably deserved to win the game, but South Korea gave a great account of themselves and also squandered a number of chances. And we've already seen a lot of the Asian teams have plenty of success so far. But in terms of kind of, today, I don't think there were many shocks. I was expecting Switzerland to probably edge a tight game against Cameroon, and as it happened, obviously it was that 1-0. I mean, it's easy to sit here and say that's what you expect, but I'd say the only one, as you mentioned, that Portugal 3-2, I wasn't sure that'd be so high scoring. I thought Ghana might sort of sit and really frustrate Portugal, because the thing I find with Portugal is they either really struggle to get over the line, create just a plethora of chances that they don't take, and then maybe just sort of scrap a win. Whereas you see today, they scored those 3 goals, but I just think defensively they looked a bit suspect. And I don't know if you saw it. I mean, I'm trying to remember the name of the. I've just got it up here now. I'm just having a look here. Was it Bakari scored the second goal for Ghana and whipped out the old Ronaldo celebration? Which, whilst it was funny because Ronaldo had just been benched and saw him on the bench, not happy that they conceded. It's funny, but it's like you're still losing 3-2. I don't know that you're really in a position to be whipping out the suit, as it were. I mean, I hate that celebration. The whole thing around it is cringy as anything, but I appreciate just the banter aspect. But at the same time, you're losing 3-2. But so it's an entertaining day. Obviously, Brazil winning 2-0 as well, as expected. So not too many shocks today.
Yeah, nice, mate. I think the African sides have probably been the letdown out of all the confederations, or whatever you want to call it. Ghana, I think, are the only team that's scored a goal so far, or they scored 2 goals today. Other than that, they've all hit blank. So I guess something to keep an eye out for with the African teams underperforming Asian teams doing pretty well. So we'll keep that in mind as we go forward. Second round of group games, fella. I think this is where it gets a bit more interesting, because the first round's been, most of the teams are pretty conservative, seen lots of 0-0s, low scoring games. So this is where it gets a little bit more interesting games, important games that teams either have to win or, they have to really scrap they can't really sit back and take a draw. So interesting stuff as we look forward to the first game, Wales versus Iran. You got Wales at 2.16, the draw at 3.22, Iran at 4s. Asian handicap 0.25, and the over/under at a flat 2. Wales look great once they put on Kiefer Moore on the pitch. I'm sure their manager regrets not starting him. And then Iran, kind of hard to get a read on whether, I guess that's the best place to start for you, Tony. Do you think that Iran performance was just a bit of a anomaly, or do you think that's actually how poor they are? Because if you look at their past results, mate, there's basically only 1 goal in all of their games. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I was at both teams' games, obviously Iran, England, and Wales, America. Iran were time wasting literally after 30 seconds. There was a time the ball went back to their keeper, literally after 30 seconds, and he done that thing you do sort of in the last few minutes where you wait for the striker to come and close you down to pick it up, and you kind of just knew from then if we got a goal, especially early, they would fall apart. And that's exactly what happened. It's really hard to know what their level is because they didn't come and play football. I presume that against Wales, they will come and have a go. They won't try and bet in for a 0-0 because goal difference is sort of the main qualifier. If you're level on points, they can't afford to draw. So I think we're going to see a different Iran, which makes actually picking a selection quite difficult because we're not basing it on the team we've seen. On the 2 teams we've seen so far, I think Wales would win pretty comfortably. But as you said, we're going to see, I expect, a completely different Iran. Also, with Wales, Bale was awful the other day. He got a load of plaudits after the game. I was reading social media afterwards, Bale saves Wales again because he got a penalty and whatnot. But he was terrible. And I think if Iran do sit deep, sort of someone with Bale's quality from long distance and also the ability to put the ball into Kiefer Moore, who obviously is very, very strong in the air. Um, yeah, I think they could be telling factors, but it kind of is one of them bets that come with a caveat that we basically haven't seen Iran, or the Iran I expect to see is one that we haven't seen yet. If they play like they did against England, as in not in that sort of style, I don't really give them a hope, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess they're going to play the same. I don't know. What do you think, George? George, sorry. I mean, that's how they've played. All of their qualifiers. And I couldn't imagine them trying to, play ball with Wales.
Yeah, Iran aren't exactly a side that love to play sexy football, are they? They're just not that kind of team. And yeah, I completely agree with Tony. I think we will see a different Iran, but even an Iran that are firing on all cylinders, I'm not even sure there'd be a match even for Wales, if I'm honest. But I'm just a bit wary of backing, say, Wales on an outright. I just don't think they're prolific enough. I know they've got Bale, but as Tony mentioned, he was poor. And I was just as surprised to see the plaudits. Like, yes, he scored the penalty, but his overall contribution to the game left a lot to be desired for me from a player of that caliber and that quality. But yeah, there was one potential angle I do quite like, because what I'm expecting is I think Iran are going to try and force Wales wide. I just think they're going to want to keep the ball as far away from the danger zone as possible. They looked completely out of their depth against England. Again, as Tony said, they just capitulated and weren't really looking to play football. And for Wales, this is a really, really big opportunity, because if they can win here, I think it'll be their first win at a World Cup final since 1958. It's a chance for Rob Page to make history as well. So there's a big opportunity here for Wales, and I think they're going to want to take it. They're also unbeaten in the last 6 matches against teams from outside of Europe. Looks like we'll probably see, that front three of Daniel James, Kiefer Moore, obviously the aforementioned Bale, with potentially Neco Williams and Connor Roberts operating as the wing backs, trying to cause overloads, getting up and down. And they're going to probably flood forward in numbers and just try to unlock this Iran defence, because I think they will still sit deep, because, as I said, there's a big disparity in quality. But yeah, the angle I'm going for, I'm looking at corners. England racked up 8 corners against Iran without reply. And Wales are still good enough to apply that pressure against Iran. So I think it could be a fairly tight encounter. I do fancy Wales to win, but I just fancy constant pressure from them. So yeah, I really like the evens that was available on Wales, covering a -1 corner handicap, so that 2 more corners than Iran, and this bet wins. So for me, I think that was a fairly decent play.
Yeah. Unless, like Tony said, that they come out and actually play, that would be the only issue. But I don't know. I can't really see them just changing up their style completely.
No.
Especially, unless they go down early and then forced to play, and they turn out there's some like a couple of magicians on the ball.
I think their best chance is if they try and sit tight, and if they can keep it level, and then that final, say 20 minutes, 15 minutes, if that's when they can maybe take something from it. I don't see Iran outplaying Wales in any which way. I really don't. Just based on kind of what we saw last time, I agree we should see a different Iran this time around. But even so, I think there's just a sheer disparity in quality, and I'd want to be getting on the side of Wales. I just don't trust them to see it over the line personally. But I just think they can apply that constant pressure. They're mean down the flanks. They've got Daniel James's pace is there for us to see. But playing with the wing backs as well, they're going to want to get forward. And in those situations, I can a lot of crosses into the box. You've got that target man in the middle of Kiefer Moore. This is primed for corners for me, and I just think Wales will definitely see the majority of those.
Yeah, and where's that at, mate? What bookie?
I'm trying to recall where I saw it now. Actually, that's a good one.
Just made that bet up.
Probably. Well, no, I backed it earlier, but I can't for the life of me remember where I found it. Tell you what.
Let me see if it's on Pinnacle.
Tony's got an extra bit on that whilst I'm looking here.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to add on what you said, that Iran would probably try and force them wide, but pretty much all of England's goals came from wide. Okay, you can maybe discount Grealish's because it was a bit of a counter attack, but we also hit the bar from a corner. We should have had a penalty from a corner. Bellingham's goal was from a cross. Obviously, Saka's came from a corner. So even forcing them wide, and if there is loads of corners like that you're backing, it's not like solid defence when balls are put in the box. And I would probably say Kiefer Moore is better in the air than any England player or any attacking England player.
Yeah.
So it's like, even if they do force them wide or give away loads of corners, it's not, as I said, it's not like they're like defensively resolute with the ball coming in from the flanks. And that was against an England team who Kane maybe is an aerial target as an attacking sense, but no one else. And I'd say Moore is probably better in the air than Kane.
Exactly.
So I think even if everything goes to sort of that plan, it still sort of plays into Wales' hands. If I was setting up against Wales, I'd personally let them go through the middle because Kiefer Moore's not going to run off you, but that's not how Iran will set up, I don't think.
No. I backed it on Betfair earlier, and you can also back it at the same price on Unibet, Bet UK. On William Hill, the -1 corner handicap is just 17 to 20. So there's still a nice big price of evens around, but there is money coming for it.
Yeah, I just saw on Pinnacle you can get 1.93 for -1.5. So,
Yeah.
So yeah, should be pretty available for lots of people there. Good stuff, fellas. I like that one. We'll move on to Qatar versus Senegal. Yeah, Qatar heavily criticised after their performance against Ecuador. A really poor start considering their home World Cup. Senegal, on the other hand, looked decent against the Dutch. I mean, you could say they really missed the killer blow that Mane provides, and maybe if Mane was there, they could have got at least a point, maybe even a victory. George, sorry, I forgot to read out the odds. Qatar 6.17, draw 3.73, Senegal 1.68, the Asian handicap's at 0.75, and over/under 2.25. What are you expecting out of Qatar for this one, George? Do you think they'll improve at all, or do you think Senegal, possibly an even better team than Ecuador, and it could get ugly again?
Well, I'm inclined to think it's just, kind of on similar lines as Iran. I think we will see a better Qatar. It's clear that they were overcome by the occasion in that opener against Ecuador. And now they've obviously got the unwanted record of becoming the first host nation to ever lose their opening game of a World Cup. And also now at risk of making a further unwanted history, if you like, by becoming just the 5th host nation to lose successive World Cup matches. So it's not good for them, and obviously rightfully so, in my opinion. They received a lot of criticism for their performances, but they only conceded 6 shots against Ecuador. But Ecuador are a side who don't score too many goals anyway, and they still conceded twice. They also didn't have a shot on target. It's kind of concerning, and I think I'd have Senegal to be. I think they're more dangerous going forward than Ecuador are, and yet Ecuador were able to tear them apart and create opportunities. So for me, I feel that even if Qatar do improve, I think Senegal will still get a lot of opportunities. We saw with Senegal, they played really well for the majority of their match against the Netherlands, and they also outshot them, but obviously fell to that defeat. So they need to start taking chances. As you mentioned, Sadio Mane, huge miss, but we've still got the likes of Ismaila Sarr, Boulaye Dia. So there are goals in this side, and I just think they look more of a cohesive unit. I was really impressed in that Netherlands game, and they'll feel a little bit hard done by there. But yeah, Qatar just defensively all over the place for me. They were. I personally thought they were lucky not to concede more, despite only conceding 6 shots. But so yeah, I expect improvement from them, but it just seems unlikely they're going to stop Senegal from creating opportunities. And I do think that Senegal will score, and I didn't necessarily like the price on the win, but to Senegal to score 2 or more goals was also at evens. If Qatar show up like they did against Ecuador, I don't see how this doesn't land. There needs to be improvement because they were awful. And Senegal are a better side going forward than Ecuador. I think Ecuador have a better defense, but yeah, Senegal, I think they're quite exciting going forward. I really enjoyed that game against the Netherlands. So I really like the even money actually on that. But again, do you know what I've gone and done? I need to start putting where I back these. I've got too many things backed, and I can't remember where exactly it was. But Senegal scored 2+ goals was at evens, and in fact, I can tell you where it was. Where is Senegal on here? Qatar, Senegal. It's just I mean, when you guys watch Qatar, they were absolutely horrific, and I was so surprised because I sort of thought, you know what? I think they're gonna have a little bit about them. The host nation. I thought it was there for them, but I was really disappointed. But so you can back Senegal to score 2 or more goals at evens on anywhere between Coral, Ladbrokes, and Betfair as well. The price is going up to 19 to 20, 10 to 11. So there is money coming for Senegal. But yeah, the even money on that happening, I just thought was a really good price.
Yep. What are your thoughts on this game, Tony? And go easy on Qatar, or maybe you will get beheaded.
Yeah, that's. Oh, I love Qatar. No, my issue with them is they look like they'd never met each other before. They played like 11 blokes had been put together in a park team. It was like there was no shape. God knows how they only 6 shots against them, because they were all over the place. There was no patterns of play, and I don't think that's something that particularly improves in a week. And look, nerves obviously did play a big part, but you should still be able to talk to sort of your midfield partner or your centre back behind you or your striker in front of you. I'm the same. That I think Senegal will win, but I don't think 1.68 is a great price. Obviously I hadn't researched the bet, but I think over two at evens sounds good. Even the over 2.5 that you've got on the screen at 2.25 is not too bad, because I think with Senegal being slightly weaker at the back, obviously Mendy's had a couple of mistakes in him. I think Qatar will be going forward a bit more or trying to get shots off. They won't want to, like, everything here is for the image, which is, to be honest, the reason the World Cup's here and the reason the stadiums are beautiful. They won't want to bow out without being seen to have a go. And obviously, if they lose, they are out. So I think they might have a go, which could leave the game quite open. And Senegal got some frightening pace up top and on the wing. So on the counter, it could be an issue. So I would go. As I said, I'd not looked at the 2 goals that George has just said, but I was thinking over 2.5. So we're kind of in the same realm there. And you've got to say that the two is. Oh, actually, yeah, I'll just go over 2.5 to be honest.
Yeah, well, over 2.5's sitting at 2.37 at Pinnacle at the moment, and over 2.25 is at 2.08. So you're getting well above evens there for goals in this one. I guess I mean I would see lots of goals in this. I guess the biggest question is Senegal's ability to put chances away. I can't. Have they got Ismail Sarr up front? Who else have they got up front?
It's got Abul Idea. He plays for Salernitana. He's a decent forward.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you guys think they can maybe put some chances away this time? Do you think it's a bit of a? What they get? I think they got 15 shots or something against Netherlands.
50,
did you
say? 15 shots they had. Yeah, they just needed to be more clinical. But as we mentioned before, these second games they offer a different perspective depending on how they got in the first match. And I think Senegal. I think they can just be far more clinical, particularly against Qatar. They'll be presented with more opportunities, I feel. And now they're kind of settling in. The first game of the World Cup is, we saw it with Qatar. I know Qatar are hosts, but nevertheless, playing your first game at a World Cup is a big occasion. And obviously, they had to face the Netherlands, who are also a very good side. Whereas against Qatar, they'll go into it knowing that they should be winning this match. And I think they'll have a degree of confidence, particularly after they played really well. So, these things tend to even themselves out. So, yeah, I think they can take their opportunities here.
Yeah, kind of weird that Qatar looks so, out of shape with one another, considering they had, I think the league finished like a month or 2 months maybe before the World Cup started, and they had all that time together. They all play in the, is it the Qatari Stars League or whatever it's called? So yeah, kind of weird that they look that disjointed. You would have thought at the very least they'd look, maybe, not got the greatest individuals, but you would have thought that as a team they would have played quite well together. So yeah, interesting to see how that develops throughout the rest of the tournament. But yeah, we'll lock in the goals angle there for the boys. We'll move on to Netherlands versus Ecuador. You got Netherlands 1.79, the draws at 4.35, Ecuador 5.05, Asian handicap also at 0.75. and the over-under at 2.25. As kind of going on the back of the Senegal performance, Dutch kind of scraped through versus Senegal in round one, but they do have Depay back to start this game. So, that could help them out a little bit more, make them a little bit less disjointed. And this game, if there is a victory for either side, probably decides who tops the group. So do we think... Tony, that they have a chance here, Ecuador, of getting a result against the Dutch, or do you think their opening result was more down to Qatar being shite?
To be honest, I think they play for a draw here, because obviously they've got 3 points on the board already. A draw against Holland leaves it all to play for going into the final day. And to be honest, Holland didn't look. I mean, it took essentially 2 mistakes. I know, look, Senegal played well, but it took 2 mistakes for them to score. It wasn't like they were ripping them apart. And Ecuador are relatively strong at the back, so I think it's actually a horrible game to back because it's one of them that you'd probably look unders because I think Ecuador are going to essentially park the bus. But an early goal changes everything. If Holland score in the first 5 minutes and they have to come out, I mean, taking it back to the England around game, if you'd have said after 10 minutes, you'd go, "Oh, this is going to be unders," because, as I said, Iran were time wasting. Everyone was behind the ball. They weren't looking to get out. They weren't trying to press. Then one goal came and floodgates well and truly opened. They ended up over 7.5. It's madness. So to be honest, I'd be looking at anything but an Ecuador win here. But I think it's too hard to call. I don't think 1.79 is probably big enough on Holland, considering the way I think Ecuador will play. If I didn't think that, I would probably say it's not a bad price. But as I said, with Ecuador, I think they will park the bus, and with Holland not being truly sort of ripping teams apart, I sort of struggle at that price. But I understand why it's there. It's just that I would have back it at that.
Yeah, the unders does look quite attractive in this one. So you got 2.08 for under 2.25. And like you said, Ecuador, pretty solid defensive unit if you go back and look at some of their past results. So if there is a team that could bet in and stop this Netherlands team from scoring, it could be this Ecuador side. And yeah, we could be looking at similar kind of group game that we've been seeing from the first round of group games, where it's Netherlands just can't find that breakthrough, especially if they don't find it early. You could definitely see a 0-0 kind of scoreline showing up here. Yeah, George, your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, along similar lines. I was looking actually at unders. I mean, you mentioned obviously Ecuador's just ability in defence, and they're currently on an ongoing 21st century national record of 7 consecutive clean sheets ahead of this match. Yeah, and so what's the old phrase they say? Obviously, attack wins your game, defense wins you titles. And just defensively, they're so good, they really are. But to be fair, although saying that, in that run, none of the sides they faced have sat inside FIFA's top 10. So this will be a true test for them. It really will. But in 8 matches that have obviously been unbeaten coming into this one, obviously the best opponent they played, was actually the qualifiers, and they got a 1-1 draw with Argentina.
They have so many 0-0s on their last 6 games.
Well, you can forward that. Yeah, it really is insane. 3 of their last 4 matches have been 0-0 draws. And I think altogether across their last 6, there's only been 3 goals, which is ridiculous. Their games are relatively low scoring, and I just don't think that even with the arrival of Depay, it's going to take him a while to settle back in. They haven't quite clicked. Even Louis van Gaal. He said that they were shoddy, they were messy in possession, and they relied on their keeper more than anything. And he was making his debut, Andries Noppert. Interesting fact about Noppert, actually, he was unemployed 2 years ago and was trying to be a police officer. So what a turnaround for him. But yeah, they relied on him quite a bit. But the Netherlands, they've not gone out of the group stage in 10 attempts. So it's such a tough one to call. It really is, this one for me. I wouldn't want to be backing anyone to win. I thought the under 2.5, 4-5 was a potential lean, but there's just too many variables. There's too many different unknown factors, if you like, and there's nothing that makes me look at something. But do you know what? I'm fairly certain that's going to happen. But the thing that most likely I think will happen, I do believe there will be unders. Holland, they struggled to break down Senegal, didn't they? And you mentioned that it took some mistakes, and the first goal came in 84th minute, was it? And I think this one could possibly follow the same format. I just don't think there'll be many goals, and it will probably be attack versus defense, if I'm honest, for the majority of the match. So I would lean towards unders, but there's nothing that makes me very comfortable about having a big play here.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see what the corners line on this one is, because we could look at a situation where Netherlands are the one pressing the action. It's actually, 1.5, similar to the line on the one we mentioned earlier in the Iran game. So that could potentially be an angle too, considering, Ecuador have gotten off to the perfect start. They really don't have much incentive to go out and try and win this game. So yeah, sitting back and trying to get the draw. I think I've got the wrong odds there, by the way, on the draw. It's 3.72 on Pinnacle. So I've not updated that correctly. I thought that looked quite big at 4s, but so that is certainly a lot lower. But yeah, I think maybe the draws, the angle, unders. I mean, unders at 2.08 at under 2.25 goals looks pretty attractive there. Like you said, I'm looking at some of Ecuador's past results here and seeing when they've conceded more than 1 or 2 goals, and they have had a tendency sometimes to concede an early goal, but it hasn't exactly resulted in massive blowouts all the time. It's kind of 50-50. So even if they do concede an early goal, maybe it won't turn into a blowout. So yeah, hopefully we provided enough information for the guys there to, or everyone listening to get on. Evening to you, Mark Walsh. He's back. The self-proclaimed professor, as he calls himself, is back. But we'll move on to the biggest game of the day tomorrow, I guess. England versus USA. You've got England at 1.57, the draw at 4.35, USA 6.29, Asian handicap at 1, and the over/under is at 2.25. Be interesting to hear the mood around USA, because I would assume they would feel they kind of let that game go versus Wales after that strong first half. And then on the other hand, England, I just find it so hard to get a read out of that England-Iran game but I guess it's going to help lift the mood, you would say, George, around England, because the mood going in was pretty negative for England, in terms of selections and recent form and stuff like that. But so that should give England quite a lift, you would think, heading into this game, a big confidence boost that they probably would in desperate need of. But yeah, how do you see this game playing out? One of the biggest games of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think you're right. There has been some frustration, surrounding Gareth Southgate's selections, and I think it's because when he first came in, he said, he'd be going on form, he'd be going this, going on that, but then he's played, taking players that are completely out of form and barely playing, and this doesn't make sense. But they're still the best of what we've got. But yeah, going into, I think that game did the world of good. I know it was only Iran, but still to score 6 goals in a World Cup match it's not to be sniffed at, is it? It's good, and it was their first win for. Well, it was their 7th match, and they finally got a win after 6 games without a victory at all. And yeah, so it's definitely needed for sure. And I think it's going to be an interesting game. I know I've got a lot of US based friends, and it's definitely one that people are looking forward to. They always feel there's always a derby feel about when England play the US, for me anyway. But I think we could be in for quite a fierce clash between these two, and it's why I'm looking at the prop markets, because I couldn't be having England at that price to go out and get a win. Yes, they're clearly the better side, in my opinion. And I was actually impressed with the US in the first half. But their match against Wales really was, as the old saying goes, a proper cliche. It's a game of 2 halves. And we saw that USA were brilliant in the opening 45 minutes. But after the interval, they seemed to take their foot off the gas and just allow Wales back into it. And it did make for a great spectacle. But from a US standpoint, it'll be quite disappointing. But yeah, so I'm leaning towards cards here, both picks. I've got 2 picks for it, and both are on Bet365. My first one's priced at 4-1, and that's for Tyler Adams to pick up a card. He's committed 12 fouls across his last 4 games for club and country, and he'll be in the thick of the action once again for me, probably occupying that central spot, maybe in a midfield 3. And the referee is Jesus Valenzuela. He's awarded a massive 6.55 cards per game on average across his last 9 matches officiated. He's a madman. He's off his head. And I think if Kane starts, I know there's a lot going around about his injury and potentially might get rested, and maybe Callum Wilson comes in.
Unchanged. I'm pretty sure it's
unchanged. Pretty sure it's unchanged. Well,
I'm 90% sure. Yeah.
Because it looks like he's dropping deep time and time again, and for me, it's Adams is going to have to target him, because Kane is actually the centre of a lot of the supply. The way he drops deep and picks up the ball, and it's kind of integral at times. And whether that changes and he gets asked to stay further forward, but I think Adams is going to be a busy man in the middle, and he's brilliant with his tackling. He always takes registers high numbers in terms of tackles. He's always in the thick of it. But I don't think this referee's going to let much go. He's not lenient. he should be awarded a fair few cards. And I think Tyler Adams could be one of the names that goes into his book. And at 4-1, it was a price that stood out for me. I think he's one of the more likely ones. We saw Weston McKennie in the previous game against Wales. He's just as fierce, and obviously he picked one up there.
Did Adams get booked the other day?
No, I don't think he got booked the other day, but I think he made more tackles than any other player in the US side. So he's.
I was going to say he might be hesitant to get a second yellow, so he's not suspended.
No, he didn't get booked, but he made more tackles than any other player. So, like I said, he's always in the mix. It's his job to sit there, spot danger, sniff it out, recycle the ball, and build attacks from there. And he does that job so well. If you've watched much of him for Leeds this season, I've really enjoyed watching him personally under Jesse Marsh as well. But yeah, so it's clear that I like cards in this game, and I was very surprised when I saw the line was set at over 3.5. Both sides showed like immense intensity in the first half of both their World Cup openers for me, but just showed a bit of a drop off after the interval. And I don't think they can afford to do that here. And I think when these two teams meet, so much has already been built up about it. It's going to be quite a fun match. Just the sheer ferocity of some of the players that are involved that aren't going to want to give an inch. I think it could be quite tasty. So I really like over 3.5 cards, and it was priced up at 10-11 this morning when I backed it, but it's now priced up at 4-5. But I still quite like that price. So anything below maybe 1.73, so 8-11 that I probably wouldn't back, but 4-5 I still quite like that price. And so yeah, two picks for this one was Tyler Adams to be carded at 4-1, and just for the game to see over 3.5 cards now at 4-5.
Jeez, mate, it's taking you a while to give me a cards bet, which is quite disappointing. That's what you're known for, mate. You've taken about 8 games to get there. It's disappointing.
There we go. Give the people what they want.
And yeah, your thoughts, Tony, on England and how they bounced back after a pretty poor lead up to the World Cup.
Yeah, I thought I'm not sure if we was really good on Monday or if Iran were terrible, or a combination of both. I thought we played relatively well, but what would that result have looked like against a half-competent team? Obviously, you'll never know. As I said, especially after the first goal, Iran were there for the taking on the counter-attack, and we had pace on the flanks. But this game's interesting. I think one of the key things for me, I wouldn't back England at that price. I think that's a crazy price.
No.
But America play like, do you know, a school team who has one good player? They play like that with Pulisic. They give him the ball at all times, even when he's not. But they're a good team. Like, you look at their players, and they've got good players pretty much everywhere. But their first thought is look at Pulisic, and I'd imagine England will be able to stop him. I mean, if you've got Rice there sitting, then Pulisic may drift wide. But obviously, playing a back five, even if he goes to the left and beats Trippier, you've got. Oh, actually, no, sorry, we're not playing a back five. We're playing the 4 with Rice dropping in. But there should be protection there. I don't think America get enough bodies forward, even though they're quite positive. Their press was really good against Wales the other day, but for me, that was because Wales can't pass out from the back. Literally, they've got some of the worst centre backs on the ball ever. And that's why I think the game changed when Moore came on, because Wales started going long and stopped getting caught at the back. It wasn't so much what Moore was doing, it was more that the press was now impossible. But I think England are a bit better than that, and they'll commit more men into it. The midfielders will both drop in. Even potentially the wingers will drop in, and that will probably kill America's press. They were also all, I don't know how much is going to play a factor because there's 4 days different, but they were all dead at the final whistle the other day. And obviously England were fresh. It was a stroll in the park essentially for the second half at least. I see a few key areas actually where England struggle. I mean, obviously I go to Arsenal every week, and I think Saka's unbelievable, but he always struggles against quick, disciplined fullbacks. People that can sort of match him, he has a big issue. And Anthony Robertson, some people might not like him, but I think he's very good, and he's very, very quick. I also think he's bright enough to not overcommit in an attacking sense, because if he does and they're getting behind him, I think it's Tim Ream on that side. And if we can get Saka 1-1 with Tim Ream, he has an absolute field day. So I think America will kind of be forced to sit deeper when they want to because of that. In terms of, I mean, I've just said a load of things that are positive for England, but I still wouldn't back them at that price. One thing I was looking at, and George has probably stole my thunder with getting better odds, but I was looking at Musa to be booked. I think he's got something like 6 bookings in 11 games for Valencia this season. He played a bit different the other day. He played a little bit wider, but I think they'll want to be compact through the middle. against us, or they'll be competitive. They'll double up on the wingers, which means he's going to get run at a lot more. And to be honest, I think he's a very good player, but tackling, I don't know, tenacious is probably the right word. The only issue with it, I just looked on Bet365 quickly because it's one of the only bookies I can get on out here, apart from exchanges, and it was 3.1. To be honest, I'd probably favour Adams at 5. If I could only make one bet, I'd probably go for Adams at 5. But I think Musa to get booked if there's better odds elsewhere is probably a good shout. I was hoping he'd be priced higher because he didn't get booked the other day. And I was hoping people would have sort of only looked at how he played for the national team and they'd put the price higher on him. But bookies are probably a little bit smarter than that, unfortunately.
Yeah. What have you thought about the referees in the World Cup, George, in terms of giving out? There's been quite a few cards, but I feel like they've been hesitant to get out a straight red here and there. I've seen some bloody dodgy challenges here and there, studs up on the ankles, all the good stuff. And they have, they've been quite hesitant to pull out the red.
Yeah, tournament football is always a difficult one for me because there's no kind of, it's not always a precedent, and you can't look at previous World Cups, like too much time's gone by, it's irrelevant. So it is difficult, but yeah, some of the challenges that have gone without punishment, and then some of the challenges that have got cards. There's been, I don't want to get into the whole debate of you just want consistency, but it is just that there is no consistency. It doesn't seem to matter what refs are in charge. The same issues crop up time and time again, because I've seen challenges that are certainly worthy of a card. They're just sometimes not even given as fouls, and then other ones that you just think it's a bit harsh, and cards are brandished. But I still think one of the worst decisions, well, we've already seen some really bad decisions. That for me, I sent it to you on Twitter, that Lautaro Martinez, because obviously I backed him to score any time and get given offside. It's the most ridiculous decision I've ever seen. And even in the England game, I think it was Maguire was just dragged down in the box. Like, fine, if you're not going to give it, that's fine. But then the one that was given is that really, I know it's a shirt pull, but it's
the Ronaldo penalty today was just the softest penalty I might have ever seen. It's just...
I've not been pleased with much of the officiating, but obviously, for this game, I think the referee's just an absolute mental case, and he's, in terms of cards, it's ridiculous. So I'm quite looking forward to watching him. But what I hope is that he doesn't get onto the international stage and just sort of thinks, I'm gonna enjoy the moment, as it were, rather than just carry on what he does. But he seems to sort of, in terms of mentality-wise, he's very strict, doesn't let a lot go. So hopefully we can see a few cards here.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff, fellas. I don't know if you guys have had a look ahead to the weekend's games. Anything we've got, I think it's Group C through to Group F, just because we're not going to be on a stream throughout the weekend. All the Group C and F games there. If you look at the bottom of your screen, I've written down all the games there, so it fits on the screen. I don't know if you'll be able to understand exactly what we've got going on down there, but obviously some big games considering it's the second round. Tony, have you had a look at any of these games, any of the match odds, or anything in particular that you were surprised by?
It's a difficult one because I think that Argentina is not priced as high as I'd hoped it would be, considering their loss. Obviously, it's a must-win. And out here, I would say probably 60% of the fans here are Argentina or Mexico fans. Like, considering obviously there's 32 countries, it's full of them, so that the atmosphere is going to be crazy. I think there'll be tackles flying in, but obviously it's a must win game for Argentina with the way the group's gone. So I fancy them, but not at 1.6, which is what I've just seen, which is too short. Japan against Costa Rica at 1.5. Japan, I was at the game. They were very good. I think the first half they didn't really come to play as much, and they tried to play on the break. And then when they had to go for it, they showed they're a good team. I think they just showed Germany too much respect, and that's something they certainly won't give Costa Rica. As I said, quite a few good technical players, quite a bit of pace, not bad in the air, which is a traditional weakness of most of the Asian nations, to be fair, because they're generally not the biggest of people. But Japan have got a few players that are quite good in the air. So even if it comes down to set pieces, they can. If the delivery's half decent, they've got players that can attack the ball. So I think if I just had to pick one out of them, it would be Japan at 1.5. I mean, I think obviously that you're not gonna become rich by backing 1.5, but I think that's probably my bet of the weekend.
Yeah. Okay. In that actually in that group, I thought I backed it yesterday was Japan. You can get them at about 5.5 to 6 to win their group. Because if you do the maths around it all, Japan should win their next game versus Costa Rica. That takes them to 6 points. Spain, a very tough game against Germany, could potentially lose or draw that. And if that does happen, then they'll be on 3 or 4 points going into the last game against Japan. You could get a scenario where a draw gets Spain and Japan through. So it would be like a mutually beneficial result for both of them. And that would end up with Japan topping the group. So there's a great chance that unless Spain go out and beat Germany, which is obviously a chance, that's the most favoured result in that game in terms of the odds. But if you're getting 5s, 6s for Japan to top the group, I think that's a terrific bet. If you can get Japan at around that, so I'd have that closer to 4s, 3s, something like that.
I would just say, and I don't know, but it's worth checking who would get who if they go through, because as you said, sometimes that if they're both on 6 points, or if it's like 6 points and 4 points, then but both might settle for a draw. But if the second place gets a ridiculously hard tie in the next round, and as I said, I don't know, then Spain won't settle for the draw, because as I said, and again, it comes down to if Japan shows Spain too much respect early on and let Spain have the ball, because they will just never get it back off them.
Yeah.
So just with that, it sounds like a great price, to be fair, and it's not something I would have thought, but it does sound like a great bet. But I would just check what the potential last 16 ties are.
Well, it would be Group F, which is Belgium and Croatia, that group. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe if Belgium were going to finish first, maybe for second place, you'd be happy to play Belgium considering how they looked yesterday. But yeah, no, it's a good point, mate. Definitely keep that in mind. And for you, George, anything you like over the weekend?
Yeah, I was on a similar line of thinking. I wanted to get Argentina on side, but just the prices just aren't there. And also, I was also looking at both teams to score for potentially Spain, Germany, but again, the price isn't there. But I think a lot of people are sleeping on Germany. I know they were awful and probably, well, for me, the whole game changed when Ilkay Gundogan went off. And I'm not just saying that because obviously he plays for the club that I like, but they just lost that control in midfield. And Gundogan, he's so underrated with what he provides. And it applies to the national team as well. And I think Germany were very wasteful, but Germany have just this habit of doing that against sides like this. And, we've seen them recently, obviously, losing to Hungary and what have you, but then they'll go and smash Italy, European champions, 5-2. Now, they have got it within them. And I was one of those people that wasn't sure about Spain. Obviously, Costa Rica were very poor and Spain took full advantage of that. They really did. But I just, 2-1 looked potentially quite big on Germany, but I'm not confident enough to back. I just thought it was a big price. So, but looking over it, none of the prices are necessarily there for me. So I was even also looking at, sorry, Alex, but your boys to potentially lose to Tunisia. I thought Tunisia looked great in their last game.
Well, I was just going to say on that, I just looked at the goal line for that game, and you can get over 2.25 goals in that one at 1.98. Tunisia and Australia probably both need to win this game. So they're both going to have to, and they're both, especially Australia, pretty poor in defence. And it's, Australia can score goals. They scored one against France, which was
also, I was wondering when that went in. I was wondering what are the scenes going on in the Vella lounge right now.
The whole neighbourhood woke up, mate. That's about it. I woke up the missus. She wasn't too happy about that, but yeah. Who would have thought we'd score a goal? It was a cracking goal too. I mean, that goal of the tournament potentially. I mean, I don't want to overstate it too much, but
unbelievable.
All right, good stuff, fellas. I think that should do us for the weekend. Definitely some good insights there, and some cracking games. But yes, summarising our bets for tomorrow or over the weekend. Tony, we'll start with you. What's your favourite bet over the tomorrow and the weekend?
To be honest, and it's one I've just kind of not gone too much about, but the Japan one, I think 1.5 is so big considering what we've seen and what the prize on offer. If they win, they're well, actually they're not definitely through, but you'd put them at a very high chance of going through. They're playing the weakest team in the group, whose confidence is probably through the floor. Germany should be through. I mean, Japan should be through the roof. So although it's not a high attractive price, I can't see any other result, which is probably the kiss of death. And obviously, because it's a weekend game and not a tomorrow game, it's one we haven't spent so much time on. But I was really shocked when I saw the price, to be honest.
Yeah, I saw lots of people saying the only reason Costa Rica get through to World Cups is because no one can beat them at their home ground. But then they come to a World Cup and they're just complete crap, basically. But yeah, what about
that's always my worry with some of the South American teams. Sorry, that some of them play at such high altitude, and I think actually Ecuador is one of them. I was actually quite surprised by their performance the other day because I think their home games are basically played on Mars and no one can breathe there, and that's sort of usually how they get through.
Oh dear.
Love that. Yeah, George, mate, what about you?
Well, I'm not going to Mars, but I'm looking at Wales, and I'm torn between going Wales on the -1 corner handicap or over 3.5 cards. But I've spoken a lot about the referee, Jesus Valenzuela, and I'll go with over 3.5 cards in England versus USA.
All right, good stuff. So I've just checked the comments, and we're getting absolutely abused by some bloke called Joe Wiggy. I'm not going to give you the time of day, mate, but just ease up on the language, champion, and yeah, maybe one more swear word, and I'll have to get rid of you. We'll just but mate, don't like Japan just because Japan are at 1.5 or whatever they are. There's you can find value in a 1.1 shot, so you don't have to necessarily back big odds. So for people that are reading that and somehow thinking that there's no value at 1.5 or there can be value at 1.02. So yeah, don't listen to that nonsense. Sorry, Joe. All right, that will leave us for today. We'll be back on Sunday at 9 p.m. UK time to preview, I would assume, the group G and H games for the second round, which is features the same teams that played today. So we'll be back then, and then throughout the rest of next week to finish off all of those group games. But gents, thanks very much for jumping on. You can follow George at @CGeorgeGamble on Twitter. You can follow Tony at Team News and Ticks for all the team news for the World Cup and football, European football, especially Premier League football all around the world. So definitely worth a follow there. But thanks for listening, everyone. Please make sure you do a quick rate and review of the podcast and subscribe to us wherever you listen. And if you're looking to implement some of the strategies we talked about today on the podcast, please start a free week trial with Trademate Sports. Gents, thanks very much, and we'll catch you soon.